mean, Vogue, seriously. It's, God forbid you send me a fucking gift. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. It goes both ways, though.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
And your wedding gift to Jock wasn't the best, wasn't? Let's be honest.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Four figures off his bill? Fuck that. I'd
Four
take that
figures?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you want something. He's never going to remember that. You know, you want something that can sit on in his kitchen, or a little statue, or a little.
I'm the only person in his life that's cutting down his expenses.
Welcome to Rogbo's Basketball Series. Myself, Mike Procopio from the US. A lot to go through this week. Trade rumors and trades have ramped up. Obviously the NBA Cups are on, so I know Pro's going to be tuning into that, watching that one very, very closely. Pro, what's going on?
Folks, what's going on, brother? Just, I messed up the time today. For some reason, must be a senior moment getting up there in age. I thought it was half on the hour, and it was full on the hour. As unlike most NBA people, I will actually accept responsibility for being a moron.
Well, you just dobbed yourself in because we're not live, so people wouldn't have known that you were late, but appreciate that, Pro. Pro was late. He thought we were recording on the half hour, which we never have done for some reason, but yeah, appreciate that, Pro. We're all good. Let's get right into it. Team of the week. Who you got this week?
Oh man, I'm rolling with the Memphis Grizzlies, man.
Okay.
Won 4 straight. I've been watching them a little bit more closely. I mean, their offense is kicking, Bobs. I mean, talked about it last week as far as, what they've been doing statistically in the league. You look at them, they're winning a few games here and there, but you watch the way they play. I'm telling you, I know we were talking about the offense. We weren't really sure if it was going to work or not. I mean, the way they play and the space they play out of, instead of screening on the ball and everybody clumped together, they basically just spread the floor. They attack you. They're number 1 in scoring, number 4 in field goal percentage, number 1 in blocks, second in assists, averaging 30 a game, 28th in assists last year to number 2. But it's just, and I think we talked about it as well last week, the transformation of John Morant into somebody who needed the ball, needed to dribble around and just sort of look for things to do offensively. Now he's getting off the ball quicker. He's passing the ball more. That ball just moves. He's averaging, I think, 9 assists a game, and just the ability to spread the floor, run you. And again, like we touched upon last week, they don't shoot a ton of threes. They're middle of the pack from 3-point shooting. I think they're 15th, 16th in the league in makes and attempts and percentage. So they're not taking a ton of threes. They're not taking 50 a game. And they're really they're just finding space and playing basketball. It's a pretty cool way. And I could just see how this is going to translate going forward around the league. They've been pretty fun. Have you seen them this week or the last?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, they're playing really well. They're playing really well. They beat that big win in Boston they had about a week or two ago. They're playing really good basketball. We talk about Boylan and who was the other guy?
Nola Roach is the guy who invented the offense. And you talk about people inventing offenses and well, there hasn't been anything new in the game in a long time. But I know him, and I know his mentor, who's an NBA scout in the Western Conference, who really put this offense and it's just sort of the pattern of it and the philosophy of it together. And they've been telling me about it for years as far as how the game should be played. And I'm not really an X and O guy, so it's all over my head, even though it's a simplistic way to play. But it's just sharing the ball, quick decisions. Everybody's a threat on the perimeter. But a lot of cutting, a lot of moving, a lot of spacing, and a lot of just ball movement. And it's a pretty fun basketball to watch.
Yeah, they also signed I saw a video, a European coach, Tuomas Lisalo, Finnish
from Paris
coach. Yeah, and they ran a similar system over there, right? So he was at Telecom Baskets Bonn in the early 2020s. And then signed with Paris Basketball. They brought him in. He basically took most of the players from Bonn over to Paris because they won the FIBA Champions League and played really well. He was the coach of the year for the Champions League, and then he goes to Paris, brings that squad, runs a similar system, wins the Euro Cup Coach of the Year, and they've gone out and got him too. So he's very similar to what you were talking about, the other two assistants implementing the offense. He's big on threes and offensive rebounding and ball movement. So they've got a pretty good coaching staff there that seems to be all about the ball moving side to side and creating seams and attacking and just keeping the defense kind of on their heels. For all the people out there that follow coaches and like to jump on YouTube and Google and see some interesting stuff, Google this coach and his era at Paris basketball and watch some of their clips from when he was there. They were playing so fast, man. It was, and it looks even faster because in Europe, as we know, it's very half court orientated, very grind orientated, very chess offense, get the shot they want. And this team was just running, and their philosophy was that your individual matchup beat them down the court every possession. So every time we get the ball, whether it's a make or a miss, you concentrate on just sprinting and beating your guy and getting to your spot. And they did that every single possession. And some of the shots that they were getting, just wide open layups, like defenders were basically running back, and before they've even turned around, the ball's already on them. So it's pretty interesting stuff. And Memphis, they have Ja Morant, they have some athletes, they can get up and down, and their paint attacks are, one of the best in the league as well. So yeah, they're playing really well. And if they can stay healthy, and even, we touched on it last week, even without the health, they lost one of the best players in the league, and they still were able to sustain a competent record without Ja Morant, which, there's not a lot of teams out there that can say you lose a top 20 player off your roster that you can sustain a record that's above 500. They did that. So I'm high on them. I think they got a really, really good roster and a really, really well-balanced team.
Yeah, and besides Morant, like, who's making a big transformation in his game, is Jaren Jackson Jr. You'll see a lot of times he'll either get a rebound or push it, or they'll give it to him in delay and like give it to him in half court, and he'll just go to the basket and off the dribble, and they're just tough to guard. And a lot has to be said, like, with their development of their players. Like, Gigi Jackson's been out, with an injury, but Scottie Pippen, Sante Aldama, and the kid Huff, the big kid, Jay Huff, who's been a G League guy who's now really coming along the scene. Zach Edey's been hurt. He's been taking a lot of minutes, and they've just been doing well. And it's you don't see a lot of new basketball. You see a lot of 5-out. A lot of people just handle it in the perimeter, 19 dribbles to an ISO, ISO shot. And I'm not saying they don't isolate. I'm not saying that they don't set pick and rolls, but they do play a different style of basketball. It's pretty fun to watch. And, with not a prototypical 5 as far as how they use it. They don't post up a lot, especially without Edey in the game. They sort of put those guys on the perimeter and just attack on, rip throughs from the perimeter, and as well as just cuts, and it's pretty cool to see. And the Paris guy was very good from what I've been told and from what I see. He liked the screen to roll a little bit. I think they were a little bit screen to roll heavy, so that's sort of the difference. They sort of combine his running game into the patterns in which they do, as far as no screen roll on the ball and cutting and moving. So it's pretty fun. So looking forward to seeing it. Who do you have for team of the week? Because I couldn't really find one, so I'm just going to go off of you.
My week team. Well, I'll do my
week team.
First, I'll do my team of the week.
Oh, shoot. Team of the week. I apologize.
Yeah, man. Just, chill out. You got somewhere to be?
No.
But just to finish off, Memphis 18-8, good for second in the West. Their home record was one of the best in the league. They're 12-3. They're 6-5 on the road, so struggle a bit on the road. But I think a lot of that was tied into when they had injuries. But they're right up there. My team of the week is the Miami Heat. 13-10. They won 4 straight. And some good wins in there. That's kind of what I looked at. Sometimes you can go on a 3 or 4 game win streak for our team of the week, but you're playing against, teams at the bottom of your respective conference. They had some nice wins where they beat the Lakers. Well, that's an okay win, but they pummeled the Lakers by 41. They beat the Phoenix Suns, they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they beat Toronto Raptors. So there's 3 pretty good wins out of 4 there for probably 3 playoff/playing teams. And Cleveland, obviously one of the best teams in the East, and they managed to beat them. And they're playing pretty well. Their big three's kind of where it's at. They've got that mini big 3 there. Tyler Herro's having a great year. 24.2 points, and you got Butler with 18. You got Bam with 16 and 10 a night. So it's those 3 guys that are going to carry them if they go anywhere. Tyler Herro always stuck in trade rumors. Butler now in trade rumors. Sort of interesting to see what they do there. But I think Miami's, they're solid. Super inconsistent, at least over the last 2 years. Just haven't been consistent week to week, month to month. They'll have ups and downs. But obviously a very well coached team. We spoke about them at length, about Spo and all that. We don't need to get into that. But they are my team of the week for this week.
Yeah, I mean, Hero and Bam has had a great last 4 or 5 games. They didn't play a lot this week, but they for what they've been doing the last week or two, as far as productivity. I think Hero, out of the last 5 games, has about 3 or 4 in the 20s. Had one 31-point game. Bam's been playing well. It's just a balanced attack. It's funny. You always count these guys out. At some point during the season, this guy's not playing well. This guy's not playing well, and then they rip together 4 or 5 games in a row where they play really well. So you never really can count those guys out. They're always tough. They always fight. They always scrap. And they're an interesting team. Duncan Robinson, you think he's dead to rights, and then he'll come up with 3 or 4 games in a row where he makes like 6 threes, scores like 17, and does a lot. And obviously they've been battling. So yeah, they're a team that you can never really count out, and it'll be interesting how they finish up, especially with all these trade rumors going forward.
Who's leading them in assists, Pro?
Oh, who's leading them assists? I'm gonna guess. Is it Tyler Hero?
No, it's Bam Adebayo. The big man, 5.2 assists per game for him. Hero with 5.0 and Butler with 4.7. So they share the assists, but it's not often besides the Denver Nuggets that you see a big man leading a team in assists. All right, my weak team this week, Golden State Warriors have to get it. They've kind of haven't been great over the course of the last 2 to 3 weeks. They had that hot start, and they've been in a bit of a free fall since then. They're still in 5th in the West. They're 14-10, but they were a hot starter out of the gates, and they're 3-7 in their last 10. And it's probably just in some of the games that they've lost in that run, which gets them the nod. I think they're just been inconsistent. They just haven't. They had a 5-game losing streak at one point where they lost to the Spurs and the Brooklyn back-to-back, and they lost to OKC, Phoenix, and Denver. So if OKC, Phoenix, Denver, fair enough. Got to get the Spurs and Brooklyn. Then they beat Houston, lose to Minnie, beat Minnie, and then lose to Houston by 1 in what was a controversial game in the NBA Cup. But they've just been inconsistent. They just haven't had that flow over the last just 2 weeks. I think starting off out of the gate, I think they probably, them and the Lakers probably surpassed everyone's expectations out of the gate. I don't think they're top 4, top 5 teams. In my opinion, I think they'll be kind of fringe playing, maybe scratching 6-7, fringe playing somewhere around there. So, it's just, now obviously we'll talk about the trade in a second here, but they've just been inconsistent over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, look, it's ups and downs of the season without question. And look, they still got a good roster of players, and they still could stretch things together and put some things together. But yeah, a little inconsistency for sure. Had some great comments on the Cup game. Where Kerr was saying that court looked like he's entering the depths of hell. That was pretty good. I like that one. And then he said that he never saw a game, be decided by a foul 80 feet from the basket. So I thought that was interesting as well. But yeah, you do get robbed once and twice here in this league and during the season. So it's interesting. Yeah, they've been struggling as of late a little bit. They got off to a great start. I still like the development of Kuminga. I think he's been playing, he's up and down. He's not I don't love him, but I think he's definitely been playing well. Buddy Hield's been all right. But yeah, they got to just, they got to take a breath and see what's going to happen. I think they got to get past this trade deadline, to be honest with you, to see what type of team they're going to have going forward and going towards the playoffs. But hey, look, you got to play game to game in this league. You can't really wait on things. But, Brandon Podziemski, he's been struggling, as of late. A lot of people throwing him over the rails for a second, as far as how his play is dipped off. But and you got a bunch of people in trade rumors, so it is an interesting thing. It is the NBA. You got to deal with that. But yeah, they've been struggling as of late.
And it was a tougher pick. They're probably not a traditional super weak team for this week, but there wasn't a whole lot of candidates, to be honest with you. Everyone's kind of on either 3 to 4 game losing streak or a 2-game winning streak at the moment. No one's on a super long win streak. The longest in the league, I think, is 5, and that's OKC. And the longest losing streak as we are at time of recording is 5, and that's the Portland Trailblazers. So there's a bit more parity over the course of the last couple of weeks as far as wins losses go. So we'll keep watching that space. But they're also. I mean, both of these teams. I think the Miami Heat can go on a 5-game losing streak, and I think the Golden State Warriors can go on a 5-game winning streak and kind of flip it on its head by next week. Like those two teams are kind of pretty erratic with the way they go about things. So we'll be interesting to see. Bucks and the Thunder in the illustrious NBA Cup, bro. Are you going to get the popcorn out and make sure you don't miss this one for the world?
Yeah. It's not probably what the league wanted. I mean, they obviously wanted a few more bigger market teams. I think it's I think the whole NBA Cup thing is sort of wearing off, as we talked about. Look, the first year was exciting without question. I think there was definitely some excitement about it, just like anything else. People, teams chasing more money, and you know, you get the payday of what, like 500 grand on, if you win the thing. So I think there was some excitement. It was new. They were putting millions of dollars into the promotion of it. Now I think it's just like anything else. It's just, it's just a lethargic deal, just more NBA games. And, and to, on another point, it's teams that they probably don't want in there. Oklahoma City, for sure. That's the team you want to see. They're the future of the league, but, you want to see teams like Boston or New York, or, something like that, even the Lakers, right? And, not seeing those teams. It was sort of a sleeper it was still sort of just a dud for the Final Four, and for the most part. So yeah, it's probably not going to be the most exciting of games, especially Milwaukee. What are they, like 14-10? They're just okay, and playing Oklahoma City, which is really good. By the way, Bogues, have you seen these? I think we've mentioned it before, but the Oklahoma City post game interview stuff.
Yeah, where it's like 5 or 6 of them or something, the whole team.
Yeah, it's a bad look. It's not just that. That's fine, whatever, you're doing as a team and all that, but a lot of cussing, a lot of swearing. Look, I'll be the biggest hypocrite if I'm against swearing, but I think in coaching interviews and press conferences, as well as players, I think you got to be a little bit better than that. But there's a lot of cussing, a lot of swearing, a lot of just, I don't know. It's just not a good look to me. But anyways, I don't want to take away from the
it's a
NBA
phase.
Cup talk.
It's like the pouring water on guys' heads phase that went on for like 3 or 4 years, right? When you're the player of the match and you get interviewed, one of your teammates pours water over your head. That was going on for a while. Now it's this. I mean, it's just there's always some sort of fad or trend that goes on. I don't get it. If you're the commentator or the interviewer trying to get legit analysis from a player after a game and you just hear yelling and shouting, it's pretty shitty. But the league is they're fine with it. So nothing you can really do about it. I mean, some will say it's not a big deal. It's part of team camaraderie. It's loose. It's this. It's that. But I mean, I really have an opinion on it either way. I don't love it. But it's to me, in a year's time, there'll be dudes doing cartwheels and doing interviews upside down, standing on their heads, and that'll be the new fad. So it's just one of those things.
What are your thoughts on the actual cup now, second year into it? I mean, do you sort of agree, or
would you know the NBA Cup was on other than the courts if the courts weren't painted?
No,
I wouldn't. That's the only reason I know it's pretty smart. Like, let's just make our courts as ugly as possible and bright, so it's the NBA Cup game. Because if it was a regular court, I would not know it was an NBA Cup game. Right? They actually do the lighting different too, which I found interesting. Like, Vegas did the lighting much differently. They blacked it all out and had strobe lights and shit everywhere. So that was kind of weird as well. LEDs everywhere. But I've been, I wasn't a huge fan of the plane, but I think that's been great in both leagues, the NBL and the NBA. This one, it's not soccer or football. Like, it's not. There's the league cup games in England and Germany and these soccer leagues that have been around for hundreds of years. They make sense because it's a cup, because it includes first, second, third division teams. So you could have a third division team playing Manchester United, right, and beating Goliath, right? Like, this is just, I don't know. Like, this would work if the NBA had teams in Europe and had teams all over the world, and you could have a true world league. The cup thing would work because you'd invite all second division teams in each, all the countries' league teams. So, like, say the NBA had 2 teams in France, 2 teams in Italy, blah blah blah. Then that league would still have its own league under that. Then you invite teams from that and make it a cup. Then that makes sense. But to me, it's just fatty. And it's obviously they know this is a dead period for viewership. They know it. this period of time. So you have the preseason. There's a bit of excitement. October, November, people might tune into a preseason game. Then they'll tune in for the first couple of weeks because it's opening season, and then they know November to Christmas is shit. Then the US has their Christmas holidays usually a week before Christmas up until New Year's. That's a decent period for them because everyone's doing what? They're at home, they're eating, they're drinking. Cold climates are inside anyway, so they're watching a lot of sport, football and basketball and baseball. They get a decent viewership there, and then the same thing happens again in January, right? When everyone goes back to work and things get back to normal. And then, maybe after All-Star, there's a tad bit of a uptick in people seeing who's going to make the playoffs, and then you got the playoffs. So I get what they're trying to do, but I'm not a fan. I just don't think there's nothing prestigious about it. But maybe in 30 years' time, this will be the be-all and end-all event that everyone loves. I just don't see it. And I think a lot of teams, like your point about Boston and some of these teams, it didn't seem like they were as motivated by the NBA Cup as some of the middle to low tier teams that are like, you know what, like we're not going to probably be a playoff team or we're not going to probably be a competitive conference finalist, but we could win an NBA Cup. At least we get something out of this season. That's probably the Milwaukee Bucks, right? They could salvage what has been a horrendous start for them. They've salvaged the season to be a playoff fringe playing team. Get an NBA Cup trophy, maybe it saves some jobs over there.
Yeah, Bogues. I mean, with the cups that, at least on the basketball side in Europe, look, Europe plays one game a week. They play one game and then they play the Euro League or whatever other league they play in besides their domestic league. So they only see each other once. I think only 8 teams qualify for it, and it's over a few day period. With the NBA, you play in 2 or 3 games a week, on average. I just think that it's just an over influx of games, over influx of teams. And I think just people are like, okay, just like these are regular games. Where I think the Cups, they've had so much more history, in it. There's a lot more passion, and the average NBA viewer that's not really making much money, they look around and say, well, NBA players are getting an average of $9.5 million up to anywhere from 3 to 65 million a year, and now you're going to pay them 500,000 more if they win the cup. So I think there is a little bit of a bitter taste in a fan's mouth about it. I think the first year of anything, especially if you're going to market it like that, they'll be a little excited. They'll tune in, new court, all that. But I think if they just sort of another, just in other games, there's so many games. And again, we talk about the style of the play and not all that enjoyable. Most of the games, not all, but a lot of them are. It just is what it is. And I just think that it's just overload. And I think people are just like, the players are like,
It's $500K a player? Is that what it is?
I believe it's $500K a player. And I think staff gets something too. I don't know if it's 500 grand, but I think staff has a pool of money that they'll get if they win it as well.
I would love for them to take 100K for the winnings, put the other 400 each, or halve it. Say half go to the players, put the other half in a pool, make it like the CBT, where your home fans, maybe all your season ticket holders get a rebate if your team wins it, or something like that, right? So
sure.
So then at least your home city fans have a vested interest in watching all the games, because like shit, I paid $100. I got 10 games, 10 game season pass, season ticket holder, $100 a seat. I could get a rebate of $500 of that back out of that 1,000 that I've paid, right, for those 10 games. Maybe I think that would be good too. That's what I love about CBT. For those not familiar, the winning team, their fans would get a portion of the winnings. So that, that's how they drummed up a bunch of support. Maybe do that. But I think we're trying to bring more interest into the games. I think it all comes down to just games played. The games just don't matter as much because there's too many games. And I've piped on this many, many times. That's why I enjoy watching the NBL, because it's 28 games. Look, there's talks of expanding that maybe to 36 or something like that if there's another team that comes out, which is still plausible because it's basically everyone plays each other 3 to 4 times. The games matter so much more. And you look at the NBL especially this season on a week-to-week basis, the ladder's just changing all over the place. First is dropping to third, and 10th, ninth has gone up to 6th and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's because the games are much more valuable. One game can swing your season. One game can swing your percentage. Percentage is also played here pro. So, the games have to be played till the final buzzer. So you'll often see teams trying to run up scores on teams because the percentage matters. If you tie with another team, it goes on straight percentage. So you want to try to blow teams out when you have a chance. And I just think the problem the NBA has is they've got all this TV money for 82 games, but people just don't want to watch 82 games. I just think it needs to be less games. But that's
Well,
a point we've
the
labored for years.
well, the problem is, Bogues, I mean, the BRI will be heavily affected, which would heavily
Exactly.
affect player salaries if you don't have 82 games. I mean, this is what all the player salary structure is on. It's on ticket sales and TV revenue and all that. So if your games are going less, then that means your TV contracts would be less. That means less ticket revenue, on all the other revenue that comes with it. And then
Mm.
it just the players would
Well,
never
it
go
does
for
it
it because
though. I
they didn't
mean,
want.
you'd think, okay, if you've got 41 home games and your tickets are all on average, let's just make this up, they're all $100 each in the whole arena. That's including upper bowl to lower bowl. Let's just say it's $100,
Mhm.
and you got 41 games. But if you've got 30 games, those tickets then would be more valuable theoretically. So they're $200 tickets now because there's less games. There's more demand for those tickets. There's not as much seats over the course of the season. The same goes for TV viewership, right? Like if the games, you could argue if the games mattered more and there was less of them, you'd have more people tuning in. Instead of getting 2 million viewers, shit, that game matters, you might get 4. So, I don't know how they do all their metrics. I know that the more time you're out there, the better it is. More
Mhm.
time spent out there, the more advertising, the more you're seen. But I just think this is a perfect time because of streaming, and that's where they're really lucky, the NBA. You got the streaming wars, you got all these platforms that can pay a shitload of money, but how long is that going to last for? It's
Mhm.
eventually, the NBA can't keep going like this, no matter what. Nothing in life, no business goes like this for eternity, right? There's eventually going to be that little cliff edge is going to fall, and then it's a matter of, can the NBA go and then sustain and then slowly get back up? Or is it going to go like this and then, holy shit, we need to fix shit and then go back up again? That's what you want to avoid. It's just a matter of, when do we see that cliff edge coming? Is it 2030, 2040, 2050? Who knows? But it's eventually going to come. It's a matter of how the NBA handled it at that point.
We've been talking about it for a while though, Bogues. I mean, theoretically, viewership, and again, I don't know which metric to go off of because as they say in The Wire, they always cook the books. You don't know whose books are right, but like if a lot of these people are saying the viewership's going down, and but this money keeps on going up,
Mm.
and you would have thought the last TV rights deal would have been affected, but it's not. It went up and now it jumped up again, huge. It's just an interesting phenomenon, especially with, the way the economy is going globally, and if you say viewership's going down, but all this money's going up, I don't really, it's over my head, over my pay grade to know what's right and what's not, but I don't know, just interesting.
I mean, I agree with that too. Like every time there's all these articles that came out, it's on a decline, and then you get an all-time record high TV deal or streaming deal or whatever. But my point is, like, it's going well right now because of all the streaming wars and everything. The market's changing. Cable's going to eventually wash out, as we all know, as the older population
Mhm.
dies out that are still relying on cable TV. Probably my age generation, even probably yours now, pro, like moving more towards streaming services. The older generation above your 50s probably are just stuck in their ways, but that's going to last another 20 or 20 odd, 10, 20 odd years, and then that's going to probably be completely cut, right?
Right.
My point is, these streaming services are only going to pay that mass money for so long, I think, and then it's going to kind of steady itself out. What does the NBA do from there? But we'll see. Might not be alive when it happens, but like I said, every good business, everything that's a unicorn startup, this and that, eventually comes to a position where that access can't just keep going that way. It's just not possible. Very, very hard. Very few businesses in the world that have done that over the course of decade upon decade upon decade. The NBA has done a great job the last three odd decades with it. But
Mhm.
you're just wondering, can it be sustainable for NBA players to make 50, 60 million? That's another 5, 10 years. That's 100 million a year. But then you look at baseball and you look at, I don't follow baseball, but I heard that, there's a guy that signed $1 billion deal, right? Just recently.
Mhm.
So, they're on the other side of things and they play 180 odd games. So, but more of a different culture in that in baseball than basketball, right?
Right, no question about it. It's just interesting dynamic. Um, but yeah, with it, they got to try to create more. We talked about it last week about the either some type of foreign tournament they're trying to put together. We talked about the All Star, sort of the reorganization of the All Star game and All Star weekend and how that's going to be. And we talked about the play in. They're just trying to, Adam Silver's is trying to recreate things to sort of get more people going. It's just tough because everybody plays the same way, it seems like, for
That's
the
the
most
issue,
part.
man. It's so boring.
Everyone plays the same way. And it used to be like, Chicago, like in the 90s, like Chicago ran the triangle, Utah ran ran screen and roll. There was running games, there was pick and roll games, there was post up teams, there was
Indiana
non-post up
ran
teams.
Reggie Miller off 500 screens, pin downs,
Yeah, so
and it was like, which
F,
system's going to work? That was the intrigue with it all. It's like, is the
yeah,
7-foot Ewing going into Ewing and Shaquille O'Neal on mass? Is that going to beat, getting Jordan on the elbows for ice? Like, it was cool.
yeah,
That, like, I love that. And I was part of that era, thankfully. Like, the 2000s were very much like that. Early 2000s to mid 2000s,
right,
it was very, this team runs this. How are we going to counter that? Let's try to see if our system works. Sometimes the team gets blown out. Oh, that system's great, and we don't see that. It's literally whoever makes the most threes,
yeah,
whoever hoists up the most threes with a low to mid 30% is going to win the game.
yeah,
And I agree with you. It's this isn't from a point of hate. I love basketball purity. That's why I enjoy watching EuroLeague and international ball when it comes on, the World Cup and the Olympics, because it's pure. It's like there's different systems and there's adjustments. The NBA is just becoming very, very. It is a copycat league. It always has, but I don't know. I don't know how you change that. I mean, it's just one of those things. I talked with a friend about this, and he was saying that do you count the dunkers as more? Is a dunk now more worthy? Do you take away corner threes? There's different things you can do to try and change the incentive of that 3-point shot. But then to me, as a purist, it changes what basketball's all about and what it's always been about. You don't want to manipulate rules too much just because things aren't going right. But we let's just blame the analytics nerds. I blame it all on them. It's all their fault. It's all their fault.
I understand it. Look, I've been around plenty of really good analytic people, and they're always going to say the same thing: three's worth more than two, and they want to get more value out of possessions. But if you're really good at getting to certain spots, doesn't matter what spot is. And I agree, like with the analytical part. Look, I've read Sprawl Ball, which is a great book on analytics, and talked to plenty of analytical people. And my thing is, like, I agree, like, you can't just post up every time. You can't just grind out 19 dribble fadeaway jumpers from the elbow. Like, if you get to spots easily, Kobe always told me time and time again, and even having conversations with MJ, same thing. I know what spot I have to get to, and I'm going to dominate that spot. So if you can make shots and you're consistently making shots, your value in possessions are going to go up. I don't care. I mean, obviously, this is a deeper discussion. We could have it another time, but like, it is a frustrating deal when everybody's playing the same way. It's just jacking up 3 after 3 after 3 after 3 after 3, instead of like, perfecting your craft of getting to certain spots and being, consistent and being very efficient with your offense. But it is an interesting time the NBA is in going forward, with all the money that's going into it, what they're trying to do for the league, and different players that are coming into it. It'll be interesting to see going forward 10, 15 years from now where the game is.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be down the route of a rule change or something eventually, if this just continues, because it's just very, very similar. Warriors have started trade season. They acquired point guard Dennis Schroeder in a trade with the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for injured forward Anthony Melton. It was done on Sunday. The deal sends two-way guard Reese Beekman to Brooklyn, along with 3 unprotected second-round picks, 2026 via Atlanta, 28 via Atlanta, and 29 Golden State's own. Golden State also receives a 25 second-round pick via Miami. I think it's a good pickup for Golden State. They obviously, everyone knows that the Brooklyn Nets garage door is open, and it is a fire sale. Every man, their pet, their dog, their cat is available on that roster. They're making no secret to that, and they're in a full rebuild from where they were a couple of years ago. But Schroeder brings in a guy that's a very, very good defender, can get in the paint at will at times from the point guard spot, and it takes Steph off the ball for periods. I think that's what's important. You can now have Steph, which sometimes he's more effective, where he's running off screens rather than having a grind off pick and rolls and teams trapping him and being physical. It's much harder to trap when you're flying off a pin down. So I like this move for them. They didn't really give up much. Gave up an injured player anyway, and some future picks. And what was interesting in this deal was reported that they were trying to include Kuminga in the deal. Brooklyn's trying to get young assets, if at all. So Kuminga was one they probably had circled for Cam Johnson. Now, I would have done this deal if I was Golden State. I love Cam Johnson. I think he's a very, very good player. Probably hasn't scratched his potential just yet, and probably some movement in his career hasn't helped that. But Kuminga, you just don't. Arguably could be better ceiling wise, but you don't know. Very inconsistent still. Started to come good a little bit, but I know the owner of the Golden State Warriors is super high on Kuminga and does not want to let him go. So that was an interesting wrinkle in this trade. They elected not to go with that, but nonetheless, Schroeder is in Golden State, pro.
Yeah, I mean, Schroeder's having a career year this year, 18-6. I mean, he's had a lot of trials and tribulations throughout his career, and having a great year for a team that doesn't really want to win, and trying just to dump off assets to get more assets. And look, Schroeder's getting to the point where he could he could help himself statistically in Brooklyn, but they're not really trying to do that. That's obvious. So I think with Golden State, like you said, it takes Curry off the ball. It gives them, it could start two guards at once. You just have a lot more options. You know, he gives you a guy who could attack the rim. He gives you a guy who could shoot the ball, scoring pick and roll, taking Curry off the ball, doing some things. And he needs a little bit of, he needs to continue to have momentum as well going forward with his career and what he could do for them. Look, they're not going to be done. They're probably going to be looking to make more moves. I would assume that if there's going to be a deal done, any minor type player or mid-level type player, Wiggins will be in the deal. Podziemski's going to be in the deal. I think if they maybe even Looney could be in the deal. Combination of those guys. If they want somebody that's a little bit more tough to acquire, like you said, the Cam Johnsons of the world, which probably won't do at this point, but the Jonathan Kuminga will probably have to be in the deal. I think Golden State has to figure out what do they want to do. They want to just put Curry and just try to get, they want something for the future. I'm not a huge Kuminga fan, but he is an asset and he is young. So you keep Kuminga on the roster, so when Steph Curry, it's time, to move on from Steph, and whenever that's going to happen, you have a young asset that you could, try to put players around. I don't think Kuminga's a player you could build around. So if you're really trying to win and you're trying to keep the ball rolling, I think Kuminga's got to be thrown in a deal. Look, I mean, Jimmy Butler's being talked about, Ingram's being talked about, as players. Kyle Kuzma is another player that it's talking about bringing in. Those guys are good players. I think that they could take you to, maybe can take you to a conference, possibly a conference final. I think it realistically will take you to the second round. I don't think it's good enough to get to a conference final, but it is an upgrade for what they have now. Look, Buddy Hield's been great for them. Curry's been good for them. Even Draymond now, I guess he's taken a little bit of a backseat to Kuminga. They've said that he comes off the bench just for his development, for Kuminga's development. So I think they got to make a major deal to, they're not gonna bring in a franchise type player, but they are gonna bring in a pretty good player. So I think that depending on what they want to do, they have the assets and the capital to do it. It just depends on what direction you want to go. Do you want Curry and you want Curry and just a bunch of the other guys to try to win as many games as you can? And even though you're probably not going to win a championship or be at that level, or do you want to be like, look, we're not going to trade all our assets for a team that's not going to win, and let's just keep these guys going forward? But I don't know. It is a tough decision to make, especially with all the money they put into that team the last decade or so.
Yeah, it's interesting. Look at how it helped them probably solidify a 5-6 playoff spot right now. I think the West is tough, but yeah, the question around Steph is how much longer does he have at this level? He's getting up there in age. I saw some comments from him recently that he doesn't want to play till the wheels fall off, which was interesting. He said, he wants to play at a high level, and then once it starts to go downhill, he'll reevaluate and reconsider whether he wants to play on. And they're going to roll the dice. He's got this level, probably left at another year or two, probably at this level. And then, age is undefeated, right? You start to slow down a little bit, but he shoots the ball so well that you can move him off the ball for long stretches in games and kind of hide him, not, use him a lot, not use his legs a lot, and then turn him on in the fourth quarter. He's more than capable of doing that as well. Ray Allen, kind of someone like that down the, from back in the day. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they move the needle. Any other trades out there? There's a Butler one. Butler's name surfaced to 3 teams, I think: Houston, Golden State, and someone else. Anything else that you think is a possibility?
Like I said, Butler, Ingram, Kuzma. They're talking about LeBron. I don't see LA trading LeBron, in my opinion. That's really about it for major guys. Like Robert Williams is another guy that's being mentioned. But again, with his health and his chronic knee issues, I don't really see that. Um, Houston, but Houston's not really talking about doing deals like they want to deal their guys, but there is talk about, teams like, for Jimmy Butler and a couple other guys, this Ingram deals where they're gonna have to give up some assets, to give 'em. I just don't see Houston making any deals. They're doing well. They've got younger players. They got younger players that are playing the majority of their rotation minutes. So I don't really see them making a deal. But that's really all I see, Bogues. Oklahoma City's gonna stay. I don't think they'll make any deals. Memphis is rolling. Dallas, I think they'll be in the market for Butler. But again, they're not really, they're not like, I don't think they're actively shopping their guys. I just think that they're actively seeing some of these better players to sort of add to their roster, and then what it's going to take to acquire them. So
I
I don't
scratched
really
my head at
see.
that Butler. The Butler to Dallas one, I scratched my head because I think you need shooting on that team, right? So, you got Kyrie and Luka, and obviously they're not going to be included in the deal. And their usage is, what are they, 90% of the team's usage probably, if not 80% combined. Like, you bring Butler in, he needs the ball in his hands. He's a long two guy. He's not a 3-point shooter. So you got Luka doing his thing at the top, or Kyrie. Jimmy's going to be a 3-and-D guy. Like, it just, I know Jimmy's a great player, but I think on that roster fit, I think you're better suited to a Najee Marshall and PJ, and just dealing with the inconsistencies. At least they got a 3-ball, right? I scratched my head at that one. Golden State, different story. You probably have to throw Wiggins in the deal, and you're getting somewhat a like for like, a non. And Wiggins is shooting the ball better this season. But the Dallas one, I scratched my head at. I just don't know how that would fit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a huge PJ Washington guy as far as the consistency of his play. Like, he'll give you 25, 26, and then he'll give you 4, 5, 5, 7. So I think if they were going to deal for Butler, it would probably be PJ Washington and Gafford, some type of that combination. And they're probably going to use Butler as more of a tough guy, an enforcer, a guy that could get you some things, could score on drives and be an extra guy to go to. Look, Clay's struggling a little bit, not playing terribly, but, you know, playing better than he played in Golden State last year, in my opinion. So you got Luka, Kyrie, Clay, and then you would have Butler and then Lively at your 5. But probably just another guy that they can go to in the playoffs a little bit when they're trying to take away Luka and Kyrie, and Clay maybe not be feeling it. Thompson might be better in those situations, attacking the rim and doing some things, being tough, playing defense. You still have Najee Marshall. You still got Kleber. In my opinion, I'm with you. I think Dallas is playing great. I don't think they really need to make that move, but you know how it is as a GM at trade deadline time. You want to upgrade your roster a little bit, get that extra name that people like, that you could depend on in the playoffs, that is battle tested. I would probably trust, Butler over PJ Washington in playoff time, as far as stepping up, toughness and things like that, when you really need him to not only be a tough guy, but to actually put up numbers and make plays. So it'll be interesting, Bogues. It's always is. Like, the crazy thing is, you and I were talking last night, about, possibility. Somebody was writing that LeBron James is a possibility in Dallas, and I just think that's crazy. Imagine having Luka, Kyrie, and LeBron on your team, and like, why, how would that work? You know what I'm saying? Like, LeBron needs the ball, needs the ball, needs the ball. And Luka and Kyrie are good not being on the ball all the time with the other, but imagine having another guy that you have
No,
to constantly give the ball to. So it is always funny about this trade deadline stuff. I do think, I mean, look, Miami's playing well. I don't know. They need to make a move here and there just for their future. It just seems like they're getting a little stale.
Mhm.
I do think Butler. I do think Kuzma will probably be moved just because of where Washington's going as a team, and trying to just get draft picks and not win games. There's really no reason to have. You can't unload Poole, in my opinion. That's almost an untradeable contract, even though every contract's been tradable. So I do think Kuzma is going to probably move. And one thing we haven't talked about, Bogues, is Philly, with Jaron McClain being out for an extended
Yeah.
period of time with his knee, and more importantly, that who owns their pick that's like top 4 protected? Oklahoma City, and we talked about that as well. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And
Hey,
Embiid
with
just
that,
broke his face again
it's
as
yeah,
well.
It's
So
unbelievable. Unbelievable,
yeah,
man.
yeah, they're and McKean was really playing well.
Yeah.
Lighting the league up while painting his nails, quite amazing. But yeah, doing really well. Uh, LeBron has taken some leave from the team, pro. So we don't have to touch this one too soon. But there's a high chance that Hulk Bron returns after the trip to Miami again. So we'll watch that space. But he comes back, re-energized after those couple of weeks of leave. I'll just leave it at that. Jimmy Butler's agent also called out Shams. I don't know if you saw that. It was pretty funny. Basically on the reporting. He wrote something along the lines of, all right, listen, I gave you a pass yesterday because I was busy, but if you don't stop putting my name on your complete and other made up bullshit because you normally aren't worth my time to acknowledge. And then said, I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm a middle-aged dad, but just know it would indicate severe dislike. So kind of a funny back and forth there. I think his agent's name's Marcus Lee, I believe. Sorry, Bernard Lee, apologies.
Yeah.
And Shams has responded saying that it was completely factual. So
1,000%, he said.
Yeah, 1,000%. But it actually said that, he heard it from the agent, right? So it's kind of like, okay, well, that's kind of interesting at some point. But yeah, a little bit of back and forth there, and it's kind of cool to see. I like it. Most agents wouldn't fire back; they just kind of let it go. But I like it when agents put this kind of stuff out. It's a nice little bit of banter from Mr. Lee there, pro.
Yeah, with all this trade stuff, people going a little bit nutty, and I don't know how to deal with it. Like, all this information, misinformation that's going on, it's tough sometimes. And, for an agent to go that far to say, hey, look, this ain't true, and you're not accurate. But then the other guy says he is. Like, I don't trust any of this stuff anymore anyway. I've been duped so many times with fake fucking, fake Twitter posts and stuff about this happened and that happened. And so it's really hard, and especially like in journalism today. You can just say anything that you want, say that I have a source, and you don't have to give up your source, so it doesn't have to be factual. So I'm not saying what Cham said was right, wrong, or different. It's a weird deal, man. And
yeah, it's a head scratcher. The source shit's wild. Like you get caught up in like sources say.
Yeah.
It's like I love when I hear coaches, smart coaches and GMs in not just basketball but just in general get asked like sources have said this. It's like, well, who's your source? I can't tell you. Well, until you have a name, I'm not answering your question. Like, give me a name so we can put it out on the table, and we can have a discussion.
And to be honest, Bogues, like in my life, like I'd rather, when I've talked to people, look, if I'm gonna talk about like, hey, this is what I think about this player or that player, if you're working for a team, obviously you can't, that can't get out because you can get fined for that. But if you're gonna talk about a player, if you're gonna talk about a coach, I'd rather put my name on it and just say, look, because I don't want to get questioned if it was me. I'd rather just put my stuff out there. But of course, you can't do that, because people want to stay in the league.
You get fired too. You get fired as well.
But I'd rather be out there with your name on it versus not. But it's tough. Like you talk to, look, the problem with the NBA is information. And I remember Danny Ainge saying this when we made a trade in Boston. And him saying, like, this is before the internet and anything. I mean, not before the internet, before social media. And he goes, yep, well, this trade's going to be done in like 6 minutes. And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, well, I just told the player. He's going to just go and tell his agent. He's going to tell 5 of his people. They're going to call this media person, this media person, this media person, and it's out. When you're in the room making a deal or calling somebody making a deal, you've got 4 or 5 people that might be around in your office, and you don't really think much of it. And then this person could be the last person you think of. Will call and leak it to this person, leak it to this person. So it's almost impossible to inquire about players unless you're doing a secure line, you're GM and their GM and no one else is involved with it. But GMs, they're going to talk to their second or third in command. What do you think about this deal? I'm thinking about doing this. Look, when I was with Danny in Boston, he always threw things off me and said, hey, what do you think about making this deal or this deal or this deal? And, you just sort of talk basketball. But if you're with somebody you don't even know this, but will go out and leak your stuff, it's really hard to evaluate trades before you make them without it getting out. And
you can't
this
stop
was
it.
just a shitstorm.
Can't stop
you can't
it.
stop it.
The analytics departments, front office departments, GMs, assistant GMs, advisor to the GMs, like those boardrooms. You just look at a draft day now. How many people are in those? Those rooms used to be 6 people, 5, 6
Yeah.
people. Owner,
Now there's
maybe a
like 40.
Yeah, it's like who's who, man. Like it's a football team of people, so it's very easy to leak. Dyson Daniels has given the New Orleans Pelicans a little bit of a clip on his way out, just basically saying that he's glad he's gone from New Orleans and that franchise is cursed. So tell us how you really feel. And he, it shows with him, he's playing some of the best basketball, or the best basketball of his short NBA career to date, especially defensively. But yeah, the Pelicans, just not a lot of success there. No one wants to stay there. I think a part of it is the city. It's not a great place to be. It's a shitty arena. People don't go out and watch. It's not a great city economically neither. So there's not a lot of money there to go and spend money on a 41 NBA game. So you kind of feel bad. I haven't really covered from the hurricane back in the day and all that kind of stuff. But pretty interesting that he put that out there. And that's this was on a podcast, on a long form podcast. You'll get these kind of quotes of more and more players doing podcasts. I feel like, those are forums that you can open up. A journalist probably couldn't get that in a 3-minute Q&A, but when you're on a podcast for 2 hours, you're going to feel comfortable. You're sitting in these comfy couches, you got a microphone, you're laughing. So pretty interesting that he went that way, pro. And then just finally, we don't have to get into that one. There's 2 things. You mentioned AJ Dybunsa's record-breaking $7 million nil deal. That is outrageous. So BYU spending too. I did some research. They're opening up and spending on the nil deals. Their top 6 or 7 is very, very tough. He's one of the best players coming out in that recruiting class. But $7 million, pro, it's starting to get out of hand. Are we gonna get to a point where we're paying guys NBA max deals to stay in college?
Folks, it's amazing. It's just amazing that there's this much money in the world to go around for things like this. Think about it. There wasn't really anything like this 5 years ago. And I read somewhere that where there's $1.7 billion worth of B spent on college athletes through NIL. Look, now there's like the NIL collective. So that's the collective that a school sort of raises, to sign players. Now they have this thing where in the Power 4 conferences, where the school is going to come up with, not counting NIL separate, now they got to come up with these like 60 schools paying $22 million a year to get it, to have what they call revenue sharing, where that's just $22 million that they could spend on players from all types of sports, not just basketball or football, but all sports. So, I mean, $1.7 billion spent on players. Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Jazz, he's obviously a big BYU booster and BYU supporter, so he's probably heading up the collective with that, which is interesting, being an NBA owner and all. And look, AJ's a phenomenal player. He's very good. He reminds me a lot of Lamar Odom. He could handle the ball. He's got size. He's like 6'9". He's got athleticism. He could handle the ball in transition, but not a generational player like a LeBron or someone like that, but someone who could be really, really good. Look, BYU's got to, they were talked about that they're going to have to overspend to beat, the Kentuckys and the Arkansas of the world that have really big NIL infrastructure, and that's what they did. But it's just a different world in sports. It's interesting with that, where now, you're asking all these donors for money with all this NIL, the collective and revenue sharing and things. But I'm just wondering, like, out of that 1.7 billion, how much did these schools lose out on of like the money that they would ask? Say, Andrew Bogut, can you donate money for a library or building or maintenance of the school? And you usually give a couple of $1 million. Now they ask you for a couple of million for the sports fund, and then they're probably going to come back to you about this other stuff. How much more do you stretch your belt on giving money to? I don't understand it. And these players are probably averaging now, Bogues, I would say 2.5 to 3 schools in 4 years, as far as these kids just transfer. I'd say 80% of your roster flips over on a regular basis. So this is unbelievable. I mean, this kid will go 1 year and out, but that 7 million that he's making, somebody wrote the other day where he's making more than the only people making more than him in the first round of this year's draft is probably like the top 5 picks. He'll make more money than the 6th pick of the draft.
Point.
Yeah,
stay in college. You get your numbers up. You have fun. I mean, there's no question now is why tuition's going up for students. That's the other people that are going to pay for it all, right?
Yeah.
But he did go to BYU, Pro. I don't know if it's obviously a huge rivalry of the school I went to. I went to the University of Utah. We're huge rivals. They're an hour bus trip down south. We call them the team down south. We don't even address them as BYU. But they had a code of conduct. I don't know if they still do, where you couldn't drink, couldn't do any of that stuff if you were caught doing it. So I assume they do still probably have that. They've got some different rules at that university. So he's getting $7 million to not have a drink. I think sexual encounters are frowned upon down there if they're found out as well. If you're not married, that was once part of things there. So I'm not sure where that all goes, but it is a different place if you're not Mormon and adhering to those strict protocols. And just to finish, Pro, the WNBA just can't stop shitting on itself, really. You've now got the Mystics owner. I don't know if you saw this. She criticized Time magazine for putting Caitlin Clark on the cover, basically saying, why couldn't they have put the whole WNBA on that cover? WNBA is the league of the year because of all the talent that we have, not because of one player. Well, I'd hate to disagree with her, but it is generally because of one player. I just don't understand why, when Michael Jordan was the face of the league, LeBron, you get it. If you're not the owner that guy's playing for, you might be a bit jealous and like, shit, I wish we had Michael Jordan or LeBron James, but you'd also understand that's a main reason why the league is in the position it is. I just scratch my head. I just absolutely scratch my head. Caitlin Clark somewhat had to bow down to all the criticism she's getting from that league and says she acknowledges a white privilege, Pro, and all that kind of stuff. And she's got into that whole debate now. So they've basically, got it to a point where she feels she needs to explain herself. It's like, you're a great basketball player. You are the face of the league. Let's get on with business. Like, it's just amazing when you finally have something in that league that is worth the price of admission. And yes, I am saying that generally there wasn't a lot there. That there was very talented women basketball players that have played in the WNBA, but for the casual fan that wasn't a WNBA fan, they weren't coming to watch those players. You finally got something that is a draw card to bring someone that was a lifelong NBA fan or a lifelong college basketball fan. It's like, I might actually tune into WNBA now and see what this hype out creating. You finally got that, and it's like, no, we don't like that. You're too good too fast. You need to go through the trenches like our league was 10 years ago. It's like, man, I don't get it, Pro. It's really mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I mean, we could go into the million reasons why, they're saying things like this. It's just interesting. Look, she's the only one. She's the only one making big time money for that league. There's a lot of really good players in that league without question, right? But if you look at the attendance on these other teams when she comes to town versus when just even a really good team comes to town, and she sells out almost every arena. She's just a level above it, and she's really good. She's not perfect for sure, but I think you got to look at it as, forget about jealousy, forget about all this stuff, forget about the color of her skin. She's making money for your league that no one else was able to really make in your league. You've got great players that were, that set all types of scoring records and things like that over a course of a career of time. Great. But your league loses 30, $40 million a year. So, and we talked about the finances of how the NBA has to, really bail them out. And we talked about their financing of like spending what, 10 or $20 million a year on private jets when they're losing money.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy. So this is the one that's saving you from this. And look, there's going to be other good players coming up the
100%.
pike, but she's the one that's saving you. And to say something that's completely idiotic like that, she's doing it for credibility, standing up for the league and not just one. Forget about it. This is your gravy train. Everyone else should be happy about it, even if you hate her, even if you don't like her for one reason or another. Like, that's fine, but separate it with business and basketball. This is the one person that's going to bring you into the black, from the red, and she's actually going to bring you, to be hopefully profitable in the next few years, with everything that's going on. You you can't deny it based on everything that's happening. You know, what she first of all, her skill set and how good she is, but it's not even that, it's just the money she brings in and the extra
How's this, bro?
people.
So on the very post from CNN Sports that had basically said Mystics owner Sheila Johnson, it says, we have so much talent out there that has been unrecognized, and I don't think we can pin it on just one player. This is what I love about Twitter. You got community notes now, right? So the community can go and fact check everything. This is the fact check. This is the community notes. Add to this. 31% of the Mystics' total home attendance for the 24 season came from the 2 games Caitlin Clark and the Fever played there.
That's
31%
insane.
in 2 games. 31% of your season attendance came from 2 games where Caitlin. No, she's not. The whole league's great. Okay, community notes, fantastic. The best thing ever invented on Twitter is community notes, and it's just like.
What people say to get credibility and to get people to, to applaud them based on that, it's just so stupid. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But
yeah, it's quite funny, but it's the NBA cannot stand success from someone that they deem should be successful in the league, and it's just mind-boggling. I mean, it's mind-boggling, and then you wonder why in 5 years they're still where they're at, or they're not getting to the point where they need to be financially. And it's like you got a golden goose, and then you want to play, different agendas into it as to why it should or shouldn't be is just crazy to me. But anyway, all right, useful, useless, bro. An NBA record was set last week, bro, and it wasn't a good NBA record. Do you know what it was?
I think it was that 73 missed threes or something like that.
75 missed threes in a single game. Charlotte versus Chicago.
Wow.
Can you imagine being at that game? You just be like, what are we doing here?
And
75 missed threes.
All these post bodes about, first of all, very useful. Second of all, there was like 30 posts on that based on saying that like this is why the NBA is unwatchable, and just watching clips of clank after clank after clank after clank. That is amazing.
Yeah, useful. Like that's a hard watch. There's hard watches, but 75 missed threes. I mean, that's look, there's been, you look at Houston in that series against Golden State 4 or 5 years ago where they missed, was it 19 straight threes or 20 straight threes? And to your point earlier, it's like, we got to figure something out. That was a team that was built to beat Golden State. They didn't do it because they missed 19 straight threes. So like there's game within the game, and I get it. Analytics say we got to bomb more threes, but sometimes there isn't. Sometimes it's like, hey, let's try to get a fucking layup. Let's try to get 2 feet in the paint. And hey, if we then kick it out to you and you're wide open from 3, fantastic, hoist it up. But that's where the analytics stuff boggles my mind, but that is definitely useful. Here's one that I find it's off the beaten path, but box outs per game, pro. Now, I don't know how they chart these. Obviously, you said they've got the camera equipment that tracks players, but it's an actual, if you go to NBA.com, it's actually a stat you can actually track now on NBA.com. So it's box outs per team. Like you can track how many players, how much box outs they give, and then it gives you a team total. But I'll give you some context. All right, so back in 2017-18, Minnesota as a team averaged 25.0 box outs. So a box out, for those when you do the podcast, when you do basketball, is when I put my body in front of your body, get contact, I turn and face the basket as the shot's going up. I'm boxing you out from getting a rebound. That's what a box out is. So Minnesota, 2017-18 season, 25 box outs per game was their average. That was good for last in the league, bro. Last in the league, dead last, 25.
Oh, wow. Uh-huh.
How many box outs do you think would lead the league? I don't know if you've looked at it, but how many box outs do you think would lead the league this season, knowing that metric?
Well, the game's different. I would probably say...
But there's more threes, so you think box outs, shit's getting sprayed all over the place. 75 missed threes in a single game. You'd think the box out would be just as valuable as it was in 17-18 because there's a lot of long shots coming up.
Yeah. Leading the league, I would say...
So 25 was last in 17-18.
Yeah, I would say like 30 leads the league this year.
Okay. You'd be off by a shitload. It's 8.9 box outs per game, and it is the Miami Heat. They're leading the league in box outs at 8. Well, it's down to 8.3 now. And their team leader is Bam with 3.
That is insane.
I mean, I don't know what I would have averaged, but I obviously played a lot inside. Off the top of my head, I would have to say in an NBA game where I played 30 minutes, I had to box out at least 10 times, at least, like just
Right.
on free throws, like on free throws, right? Like, so you're sitting there. I don't know how they track it, but that is embarrassing, and it just goes to show you, how much technique of the game has somewhat gone. Now I know the game's changed, but it's just probably something not taught anymore, because it's like, you know what, we're hoisting up threes. We're just, all right, you shot it, get the rebound, run. Dead last, pro? Who's dead last in box outs, do you think?
No, it ain't Boston. Lakers.
No, the Spurs are last with 3.9 team box outs a game, which is just outrageous, just absolutely crazy. But
$3
yeah, I
a
mean,
game.
but yeah, that's 8.9 box outs lead the league today. 25 box outs were dead last in 17-18, only 6 years ago, which is quite amazing. I'm giving that a useful, pro.
Yeah, pretty useful for sure. I would definitely say useful.
Okay, and I'll give you an NBL one as we finish. I mean, I don't watch the games, but Southeast Melbourne Phoenix versus the Brisbane Bullets. I commentated that game live. I mentioned that none of these teams have a D in their name, which they don't, because they also don't have much defense on the court. But it was the first time in 18 years both teams have shot 58% plus in a game. 2006, the Townsville Crocs were 58% and New Zealand was 61%. So first time in 18 years that both teams shot up 58% or above in a game, pro.
Really? That's
Yes.
useful.
That's useful. 58%. I was watching the game and it was like the teams weren't missing. There wasn't a whole lot of defense played, but I mean, so I put a post out saying I said something on the commentary about, I wonder what the NBL all-time high is in cumulative field goal percentage for both teams. And it was close. I don't know what the record is. I think John Casey put something out, so that's where I found that the last time teams shot above 58% was 2006. But yeah, no question as to why they don't have the letter D in their name, because they're all both offense, which is pretty interesting stuff.
That is crazy.
Okay, Aussie of the week, pretty easy one this week. Josh Giddey. There's only 2 games for most teams, so the numbers are a bit skewed. But Giddey was 13 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals per game over the course of the week. So he's now a 3-time Aussie of the week. Dyson Daniels has 2, so it's come down to those 2. No one else has piped an award yet. Ben Simmons has been benched, doesn't play a lot. Josh Green he had an okay week numbers wise, and Dyson was right behind him with a little bit less points but less rebounds and assists. So Josh Giddey gets that one, pro, and finishes off with a fact or fake news.
Bogues, Orlando being decimated by injuries. So is Philadelphia. They both have 55 games left. The Philadelphia 76ers will win more games in the last 55 games of the year than the Orlando Magic. Fact or fake news? Now, right now, Orlando is about 10 games ahead, but we're not counting these games coming up. But they're missing their top 2 players, and they haven't been doing great. Lately, especially missing the second guy with Paolo and Wagner being out. Apologize. Yep.
No, you're right.
So
you're right.
So the Philadelphia 76ers will win more games in the last 55 than the Orlando Magic. Fact or fake news?
Fake news, that one. I just don't trust Philly. I think the McCain injury hurts him. Embiid will be back. It's just clunky with Philly for me. I think when healthy, they're still one of the better teams, but it just doesn't look good. What are they? They're 5-5 in their last 10. They're 7-16. Mm-hmm. I think Orlando will be okay. Wagner should be back in 3 to 4 weeks, they say. I think he was 4 to 6, I believe. What's the prognosis on Polo?
I've heard he was getting better, but I don't think there's anything been set as far as definitely when he's coming back. That's a very risky injury, just to battle back from.
What was it again?
It's still indefinite. Yeah. They're saying 4 to 6 weeks evaluated. But
oblique was Wagner. What was
his injury?
I think it's the same one.
Really? No, I'm pretty sure oblique was it?
It's his oblique, yeah.
Oh, it is. I think both of them, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
They're doing too much core work with their S&C guy, pro. What the hell's going on?
Bogues, I don't have an oblique, so I have no fucking idea how you
No, you have one. You have just one.
One, okay, I got it.
You got one ab. One big ab.
I doubt that, but yeah, one big ab. You're right. So that's a tough one.
I think Orlando still. I think they're better coached. They seem like they're more together. They got young, hungry guys on that team, and I think those guys probably, arguably, do the Wagner and Bonchero still play the same amount of games as George and Embiid in the next 55 games, even though we know the two Orlando guys are out for at least a month more. They could still play the same amount of games. George and Embiid aren't playing back-to-backs. The rest nights every now and then. Maxi's the key to them, I think. Maxi can steal them some games every now and then and get hot, but it just looks clunky. And they're that, I know in the East they're only 2 games behind 10 as we speak, and that's Brooklyn. Brooklyn aren't trying to win, and they're ahead of you. You're in some shit. Like Brooklyn are trying to win games, and they're 2 games better than you, but they should make a play-in at minimum. But I just like Orlando. I think they're resilient and they play well together, even without their stars.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to bet on Philly doing anything these days, especially with all the injuries they've gotten, all the the circus sort of atmosphere with the missed games and the injuries and things that they're dealing with right now. So in Orlando it does have some fight, and Jamal does a great job. So I agree with you. I was just curious what you thought, but yeah, we're sort of on the same page with that.
Yep. And then even Embiid, when he's back, it's like he's got to then play back into form and shape. Now he's hurt his face again. I think he broke a cheekbone or something with the cheekbone. He just can't. Look, he has some bad luck too, man. You can't just continuously hate on him for being out of shape and whatnot. I think he has some bad luck every now and then as well. But then he comes back, and then it's going to take him 4 or 5 games, and it's just tough. They're in a shit show. If you're Nick Nurse, it's got to be frustrating. You got this roster that is somewhat built for a championship. Theoretically, on paper, if 100% healthy and no injuries, they'd be top 2, top 3 in the East, right? They should be, and you can't get continuity, consistency. The only thing he's thinking his lucky stars that he's in the East and not the West. So they still have a fighting chance of getting back into a playoffs, but it's going to be tough, bro.
That's a good point, folks. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I'm with you on that.
All right, man. We'll see you next week.
See you later, fellas. Enjoy the Aussie talk.
I'll send you an alarm clock off Amazon. Let me know if you like the ones that change colors or which ones you like.
It's been long enough. It's been 4 years. I haven't gotten a fucking Christmas gift from you yet.
Well, besides all your equipment, your beautiful equipment that you can use for other shows, we did send you all that.
Yeah, but
someone did say, what did someone say, Caleb? So someone's DM'd the Road Bros account.
I'll find it
on Instagram. It's probably Pro's alias. Although it wasn't,
Who's that?
It was a drink, not food. So
someone messaged saying, "Hi Andrew, can you give Pro a decent Christmas gift? Like send him a bottle of Grange or something. He deserves it. Thanks."
Yeah,
that's from Steve.
There you go. I did answer it. I did it. Somebody put it in the Instagram deal, and I did say I'm 4 years. I'm still waiting. I mean, both seriously. It's God forbid you send me a fucking gift. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. It goes both ways though.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
And your wedding gift to Jock wasn't the best, wasn't? Let's be honest.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
4 figures off his bill? Fuck that. I'd
4 figures.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want something? He's never going to remember that. He wants something that can sit in his kitchen, or a little statue, or a little.
I'm the only person in his life that's cutting down his expenses. Name one person in his life: agent, wife, trainer, all this stuff. They've increased his bills. I'm decreasing. I'm actually doing the guy a favor.
Maybe he'll frame the check that you sent, put it on his counter.
That's a good point too. You could have flown me you could have flown me to England to get you, cheap prick.
England? I could have.
Was that where he got married?
Yeah, London. It's beautiful.
London. Yeah, okay.
You could have made the trip from Dallas. Anyway, Pro, we'll see you next week. We've got some NBL to talk about later. Just to finish on some NBL really quickly, Brisbane defeated Southeast Melbourne, as we just spoke about. Commentated that game. The defense was left in the locker room, but Brisbane get that win in a close one. Illawarra demolished Melbourne United without Chris Golding and Marcus Lee. They're gone on a bit of a downturn at the moment. Melbourne United and Illawarra could have made that much more uglier than the final score reflected. Adelaide take care of business in New Zealand. And I like Adelaide. I think they're still... the loss of DJ, I don't think hurts them as much as people think. DJ, almost a 20-point scorer at bad clips of under 40%. I think his usage now, going to Davis, going to Harrell, those touches now, giving them more touches. I think they'll be okay offensively. I think defensively is where they got to figure out what's going on. I think Sunday Dech, I think losing him, I don't think they've reported how long for, but it looked like a hamstring, so he might be out for a while. I think that's a big loss for them because he's one of their best two-way players, shooting the ball decent from three, but a really good defender. But I think they're a danger team. I think there's a possibility for them to still sneak into that 6 even without DJ. Cairns in control in the first half against Perth and then managed to lose by 26. Bryce again with another 40-point night. I mean, he was on fire basically in that whole second half. Was interesting to see John Rillie and Perth leave their starters in, having Bryce chase that 40. Look, it's a historical record. He's going after breaking records, and you like to see that. I think it's interesting though because you leave guys in games where the result is a foregone conclusion, and then an injury happens to Bryce, then John Rillie gets killed for leaving him in a game where they're up by 20. So it is a tough one. Bit of stat chasing there, which is fine because you want a guy to go for 40, and you love seeing the theatrics of all of that. But it was interesting that it was a huge blow. It'd probably get your bench in at that point. But down if you do, down if you don't. Southeast Melbourne get Melbourne United in the Melbourne rivalry, the throwdown. Bad loss for Melbourne, I think. Melbourne being on top of the table now, kind of slipping down to second. They've had a pretty bad run, losing 3 straight and 2 to bottom 5 teams. So they'll be scratching their heads a little bit and reassessing and trying to figure out how they can get their season back on track. Obviously, some injuries have hurt them as well, but no one feels sorry for them. But a bit of new. Oh, then obviously the Sydney Kings survive a scare from Brisbane. Brisbane shot the absolute lights out in the first half. It was a nervous game. I think Brisbane, one of the informed teams in the competition, started to play a little bit better and have a bit of consistency, especially their imports starting to find it. Harrison, one of the best biggers in the league. They were shooting the lights out in the first half, and then Sydney adjusted, locked down defensively, and Brisbane just couldn't sustain those shooting clips. And Sydney end up etching out a comfortable, I think it was a 12-point win, but it was much closer than that. So credit to Brisbane for their bounce back. Their season could have went either way, and they've managed to fight their way into the 6. Dash Daniels, younger brother of Dyson Daniels, has signed as the next star with Melbourne United. So huge get for Melbourne United. I think it was down to Melbourne United and Perth. I think Sydney Kings had talks early on. He elected to stay in his home, close to his home city of Bendigo. Fun fact, I played against Ricky Daniels, Dash and Dyson's father, when I was at the AIS. He was an import for the Bendigo, I think it's Bendigo Braves, I believe, in the Seabull. And he was just this jacked 6'6", 6'7", 4-man import that just I hated playing against because he was strong as shit and I was skinny as a stick back then. But Dash Daniels to Melbourne United, huge get for them. The Jack Jumpers have released Sword and they've announced Ian Hummer. So make your own jokes with the last name Hummer. I won't, but I think a bit more of a scorer, a bit more size. I did mention that the Jack Jumpers many months ago were potentially waiting to see what happens with Jack McVeigh. I think this now 100% solidifies that he's not coming back, as we know, and so he shouldn't. He's actually had a nice little spot over there on his 2-way contract. But interesting that they've finally made their move. I think there's 10 to 15 odd games left. For those not familiar, I think it's 7 games to qualify for the finals if your imports play. Imports need to play, or players that you've signed need to play to qualify for the finals. So they've made that now, and it'll be interesting to see how the Jack Jumpers go with that. And then finally, my favorite time of the NBL year is coming up. It's basically the just have a plethora of games on from the 20th of December to January 26th. There is a game every single day of the week, bar 2 days. I think it's New Year's Day and there's a day mid-January where there isn't a game. Every other day of the week there is going to be an NBL game on. So they do, I don't know, it's 30 games in 30 nights or whatever it is, whatever the promotion is. It seems like it's a little bit more than that this season, but I love it because every day you can watch some basketball, and I think the fans have an opportunity to tune into games they wouldn't usually watch because it's only one game slate on that night. And I love this time of the year, so turn on the TV and watch some NBL games. And we will see you all next week for more Red Rogues. Thank you.